Hello, it's nice to see you again. Today, as I mentioned last time, I will explain about the DTC Disability Tax Credit. What is DTC? It can be described as a tax credit for people with disabilities or their families to reduce the taxes they have to pay. This is a benefit that can be received at any time, regardless of the age of the person with a disability, once they qualify for the DTC. I will explain in detail what specific benefits are available. First, there is the most basic disability tax credit. As of 2023, you can deduct $8,986 from your income. This federal non-refundable tax rate is said to be 15%. So 15% of $8,986 means you can effectively reduce your taxes by about $347. If you have no income to benefit from this and have not paid taxes, this amount can be carried forward. You can use it next year as well, and you can qualify for an RDSP. Next, there's something called CWB, which stands for Canada Workers Benefit Disability Supplement. As you can see below, the CWB provides a refundable tax credit of up to $1,528 if your income is low, for example, if it's $33,055 or less, regardless of disability status. In addition to this, if a person with a disability works, they can receive the disability supplement on top of the CWB. Therefore, for the year 2022, the CWB Disability Supplement provides up to $737 if the annual employment income is $37,932 or less. Please remember that this is the maximum amount. There is no guarantee that you will receive the full amount. Next, as I mentioned last time, there is the Canada Disability Benefit, which includes support for children with disabilities. Below that, the CCB, or Canada Child Benefit, is a federal government subsidy given to children under the age of 18, regardless of disability. In addition to this, if there is a disability, you will receive the CDB. As a subsidy provided to families with disabled children under the age of 18, you will receive $3,073 annually. This is based on the year 2022 or 2023. Next, there are other non-refundable tax credits, one of which is the Canada Caregiver Credit. This is aimed at families supporting a person with a disability. Then there is the medical expense and disability support deduction. If you have used something related to medical expenses for a person with a disability, you can deduct that. Then there is usually a benefit called the first-time home buyer. But in the case of a person with a disability, even if they are not a first-time home buyer, they can receive a non-refundable tax credit of up to $10,000. As I mentioned earlier, if you deduct $10,000 from your income and consider a 15% tax rate, this also results in a tax saving of $1,500. Next, I will talk about the eligibility for the DTC. You must be markedly restricted in at least one of the following 8 areas, or significantly restricted in at least 2 areas. There are 8 areas. The first is speaking, the second is hearing, the third is vision, the fourth is walking, the fifth is eliminating, which concerns how one manages bowel and bladder control. Then the sixth is feeding, how one manages eating, followed by the seventh, dressing, and the eighth, mental function. There are 8 areas like this. Here, markedly restricted refers to cases where one cannot do it at all or is unable to do it more than 90% of the time. The term significantly restricted means that it's not that one is unable to do it more than 90% of the time, but they can do it to some extent. However, when combining 2 areas, it must reach the level of being markedly restricted to qualify for the DTC. I would like to talk about how to apply for DTC, and to put it simply, there is a DTC form. There is a form called T2201, and you fill out this form and submit it to the CRA. But this form has Part A and Part B. Part A is filled out by the parents, and Part B is completed by a professional. Now, the part that the professional fills out is crucial. And who are these professionals usually? Family doctors and nurse practitioners are the types of professionals who can check all areas. For vision, only optometrists are qualified. For speaking, speech-language pathologists. For hearing, audiologists. And for walking, feeding, and dressing areas, occupational therapists. For the walking area, physiotherapists. And for mental function areas, psychologists are the specialists who can handle these specific areas. The method of writing is not too difficult if there is a physical disability, because it stands out clearly. However, it can be confusing when there is no physical disability and autism is not severe, making it unclear where to check. In such cases, usually either the speaking or mental function area is marked as restricted. If neither is marked as restricted, then both areas need to be checked. This is usually checked in the speaking and mental function areas, and both areas must be significantly restricted. Then, if you look at the DTC form on page 14, there is a section called the cumulative effect of significant limitations. I will briefly show you this form. In this section of the DTC form, you can see the form name T2201 is listed here. On page 14, a professional must complete this section. The reason I'm telling you this is that it's good for parents to know this in advance. This is because if a professional doesn't check this, filling it out is meaningless. So what I just mentioned is that in the first section, you should check the significantly restricted part. So usually the speaking and mental areas should be checked. And this time it should also be marked as yes here. It's about whether these two areas are significantly restricted. So it should be marked as yes. And then in number 3, whether combining these two results in being markedly restricted. This should also be marked as yes here. So what I've just mentioned is exactly this part. For number 4, the doctor should write down the year when autism began. Now, it needs to be filled out like this for it to be meaningful. Once everything is filled out, you should either take it to the nearest tax center or send it by mail. In the case of British Columbia, you can send it to the CRA Winnipeg Tax Center, P.O. Box 14001, Station, Maine, Winnipeg. That's how it is. You can find this information by searching. Alternatively, you can submit it online. 15 years ago when we did it, there was no such option, but recently most methods have become available online. You can create a My Account with the CRA and submit it through there. Now let me explain the procedure after applying for the DTC. If there are no issues with the application, it is said that it might take an additional 1 to 2 months. But usually within 1 to 2 months, the CRA sends a notice of determination regarding the eligibility for the DTC. Inside, it will show your name and the validity period. You should carefully check the validity period here and reapply for the DTC at least 6 months before it expires. I will show you the letter that was sent. If you look here, the title is written as Notice of Determination. So here it says, we have completed our review and determined that our child is eligible from 2004 to 2019 for the tax year. That's how it is stated. So this is the validity period. You need to check this carefully and reapply. If you do not receive any contact within 2 months, please make sure to check with the CRA to see how the process is going. Please always keep this letter. Do not throw away the application form. Make sure to keep it. This will be helpful when you need to reapply. Now, if you have obtained the qualification, you need to apply for the benefits next. So when filing your taxes, you can include the various benefits introduced earlier. However, since it might be difficult to do this on your own, please make sure to consult with an accountant who handles tax filings for detailed information. If there are cases where you did not receive the DTC, the benefits, within the validity period, because you received the DTC late, in such cases, retroactive application for the past 10 years is provided. For example, if you paid enough taxes over the past 10 years, you could receive a refund of about $1,000 per year. Then, over 10 years, you will be getting back almost $10,000 in taxes. So it's not a small benefit. If you apply for the DTC late, please make sure to receive this benefit. Of course, remember that to receive this benefit, the validity period must go back more than 10 years. For your reference, there are companies that offer to apply for the DTC on your behalf and take a portion of the benefit as a fee. There are companies that market themselves this way. You could entrust it to them, but if you do, they take a considerable fee, about 30%. There's no need to use such companies as there is an organization called the DABC. The Disability Alliance of BC primarily assists with DTC and RDSP related matters. And if you contact them, they will provide more detailed guidance. If English is difficult and contacting them is challenging, you can reach out to Pure Now. I will add a few more details. As I mentioned earlier, before consulting a professional, parents should check in advance whether their child with a disability qualifies for the DTC. This is because if the professional does not verify the eligibility, submitting the DTC would be meaningless. There are even cases where it gets rejected after submission. In such cases, you must definitely appeal. And of course, the beneficiary must file a tax return. As I mentioned earlier, please make sure to create a separate file to keep the DTC application and the Notice of Determination letter. And for the DTC, a disability certificate is not necessarily required. I will also inform you that if the professionals I mentioned earlier check it on the form, it is possible. The various topics I discussed today are available in various help sheets from the Disability Alliance of BC. Among them, it's help sheet number 14. Then if you type CRA and then DTC in the search, it will guide you to the website. And I referred to the DTC form I mentioned earlier. Let me briefly show you the format of the help sheet. Here you can see it says Disability Alliance BC help sheet number 14 like this. Although it's in English, it's very detailed and well explained, so you can refer to this. Today I introduced the disability tax credit. Thank you for watching until now. See you next time. Thank you.